to see all of you. Day one, how's it going? All right.
Okay.
I have some good news for you guys.
Oh.
Listen up, listen up. John Wick is in the house.
Yes!
Or if you're old school like me, we should probably say we are in the presence of the one.
Yeah!
I can go older than that.
Bill and Ted.
I could go.
But really what we're here to talk about today is a movie called Replicas.
Yes.
Now, full disclosure, I'm an executive producer on the movie. But listen, there's so many executive producers on this movie that nobody actually knows I'm an executive producer. So when these guys come out, don't say anything, okay? Because they don't know who I am. But seriously, Replicas is a new movie. It's so new that no one has seen it yet. It's not even finished yet. We're still putting the final touches on it. It stars somebody who you're going to meet in a minute, as well as it has a great cast. Alice Eve, Thomas Middleditch, John Ortiz. Again, you're going to see some of these people at least on the screen very shortly. My name is Clark Peterson. I'm gonna be your host for the evening. Thank you. The movie, as I said, not finished. It's coming out next year sometime. We don't even have a release date. It's being released by Entertainment Studios, which is a new company that brought you 47 Meters Down last summer, which was a big hit. It's Byron Allen's company, and these guys are really excited about the movie. Tonight, though, is going to be the world premiere of the first trailer of the movie. So, you guys are going to be the very first people in the world to see this trailer and actually to see any of the footage from the movie. So, without further ado, I want to bring out our first guest. He's a fantastic director.
Oh, okay.
You've seen his work. He started his career when he wrote the epic disaster film The Day After Tomorrow.
That's the direction.
He then wrote and directed a movie called Traitor with Don Cheadle and Guy Pearce.
Yes.
If you haven't seen it, check it out. It's a really good movie. And he's done a ton of television as well. That's what keeps him busy. He's done everything from Chicago Fire to Homeland as a writer and a director. Please welcome Jeffrey Nachmanov. Hello. Jeffrey. Our next guest. You've probably heard of him. He's done a few movies. Starting, back in the day, he did Bill and Ted's Excellent. Point Break. Something called the Matrix Trilogy.
That's it.
Speed. Something new called John Wick.
Oh my God.
And today, you're going to meet him as the star and the producer of Replicas. Give it up, Keanu Reeves.
Awesome. You got a little bigger welcome right there.
Yeah, wait till they get to know you, Jeff.
Okay.
Okay, so guys. Here we go.
Oh gosh.
All right, so thank you very much for coming tonight, this evening. Really appreciate it. So, thank you. And so we're here with Replicas, and Clark was saying that, you know, we're going to show a little trailer from it, and we're going to speak a little bit about what the heck is Replicas. It's a really cool movie. And so thank you all for being here, and I guess we'll talk later.
So
here we go.
So I'm going to start by asking Keanu
Yes.
a question, because this is not a normal sort of acting job for him. This was a picture that he actually was with for years as he developed the script, came up with the idea, etc. So Keanu, can you just tell us a little bit about the birth of this project?
Sure. So Replica started in the brain of a producing partner that I worked with, Stephen Hamill. And he had this idea, what happened if this married man, the scientist, and his family died? What would happen? And I was like, I don't know, let's find out. And so it sounded like a good idea. And so Stephen went out and he looked for some writers, and we found the writer Chad St. John, who's really great. And we worked on developing the story for about a little over a year. Just kind of developing this idea of, well, how does this husband, this father, this scientist bring his family back after they've been killed.
And is this something that you do often in terms of coming up with an idea and developing it from scratch, or was this like something that you've set up your company to do? Or
yeah, it's been a process that I really love. I mean, in a way, you're what is it? You're creating, you're birthing, you're being involved in from the ground up in something that you're interested in. You know, and developing an idea, developing a character, developing characters, a world. So it's a really great opportunity and a great experience to develop a story and develop a character.
One of our producers who's not here today is a guy named Lorenzo de Bonaventura, who used to be the president of Warner Brothers and has done a number of big movies like the Transformer movies. Can you just tell when Lorenzo got on board and how that happened?
Yeah, so I had a relationship with Mr. de Bonaventura at Warner Brothers. Started with, he developed The Matrix with the Wachowskis. On behalf of the Wachowskis and everyone involved with the picture, I'd like to thank you for that recognition. And then, you know, we've done a film called Constantine together. John Constantine. That's cool. So, and so he knows genre. He's creative. He's also kind of, if you need someone to be, you know, if you need a stick, if you need like someone to bring the hammer down, there's the Lorenzo hammer, which is cool. You know, you need someone to really, you know, we can't do anything alone, right? So it's really cool to have his support to come on board. And once he did, Mr. de Bonaventura actually introduced Stephen and I to Jeffrey. And it was his suggestion to look at Jeffrey's work and to see if Jeffrey wanted to direct the film.
And how did that go, Jeffrey, when you got that phone call?
Well, I was, you know, Lorenzo called me and said, I have this project with Keanu Reeves. It's a sci-fi movie and we're looking for a director. And I said, that sounds great. Send me the script. And I read the script by Chad St. John and I really dug it. It's just a great page turner, really exciting. And I called him and said, this sounds, I'm really excited. I'm in. What's the catch? He said, well, just a couple little things. We're a little bit on a tight schedule. You're gonna have to start in about 2 months. We're on a little bit of a tight budget, and we're gonna have to shoot the whole movie in Puerto Rico with a Puerto Rican crew during hurricane season. And there's a little bit of a Zika outbreak right now, and there's also an economic collapse, and there's some other challenges, but what do you say? And I said,
It's perfect.
I said,
I'll take it.
I'm in.
Bueno.
And we just said, let's all kind of join hands and just go off on this adventure together and figure it out, which is exactly what we did.
Very cool, very cool. Before we take a look at some footage here, can you just let everybody know what is the story? I mean, Keanu set it up. We know that this terrible thing happens, but can you just sort of tell us the story?
Yeah, in the trailer we're going to see Keanu Reeves plays a neuroscientist, William Foster, who's working in a secret lab, or a semi-secret lab in Puerto Rico on a project, and he's kind of on the verge of transferring human consciousness into a computer so that it can be preserved. And not long after this, he's a family man. He's got his wife, Alice Eve, 3 kids, and they're going on vacation, and there's a terrible accident, and everybody except for Mr. Foster dies. And he's confronted with this problem of what to do, and he decides to recruit his best friend and the other scientist in the lab, played by Thomas Middleditch, to essentially use all of their powers to bring them back. And
hijinks ensue.
As they say in the movie, there's just hijinks ensue. And the unintended consequences of that are really what the rest of the movie is about.
Very cool. So without further ado, I think we're going to take a look, and just so everybody knows, this is the world premiere of this trailer. It's also simultaneously going live on our website, which is replicasmovie.com. And yeah, if we can get the lights down a little, we'll take a look. What you think? So wow, there's really a lot coming at you in that trailer, Jeffrey. Can you talk a little bit about?
They put everything in the kitchen sink in the trailer.
There's a lot of other good stuff though, right, in the movie?
Yeah, it's one of the things that attracted me to the movie is when I read Chad's script is it doesn't really kind of fit in one genre. It kind of mixes a couple different genres. Obviously, you can see there's a little bit of sci-fi gothic horror, the sort of Frankenstein theme, but it also has a couple of moments of humor, and it also has some what I would call sort of family drama. In many ways, it gives this chance to sort of take a look at a family, and when they're put back together, what happens to them in that space, and the tension between you and Alice, between the husband and the wife, is also really interesting.
Oh yeah, because I don't tell them. Oops.
Definitely some tough dinner time conversation.
Yeah, honey. Yeah.
So they come back to life. You bring them back to life, but then they don't know that.
Yeah, so there's a certain section. First of all, it's like, what do you do? He's a scientist who has the idea that maybe he can bring them back. And he has to do it undercover. He can't tell everybody where he works. By the way, I'm just gonna clone my family. And, if you don't
in the basement.
In the basement, so I kind of abscond with some technology. I'm a scientist who's working with the idea of being able to transfer consciousness into a mechanized robot, as you will. And so I co-opt that technology and say, well, if I can do that, why can't I go, natural to natural? Why can't I just, put this consciousness into a clone body? So you have a kind of phase of the challenge of how is he going to do it. And there's some hijinks with that. And then eventually, I don't know, we're kind of giving it away.
Yeah, don't tell them too much that you gotta wait.
You saw the trailer, so it's not like, hey, Reeves, we don't know what happened, right? They show up. But there are some moral questions, some ethical questions, in terms of, recreating life, bringing people back, the whole idea of what would you do, being confronted by technology. We're really dealing with so often nowadays so much new technology that is kind of changing our lives and changing the landscape of the world we live in. And this project hopes to kind of focus on this other idea, which is kind of like the end of death. But that goes on, and that's not in the trailer.
It's not the first time you've been involved in this kind of a science fiction.
Johnny Mnemonic.
Mnemonic.
Hey, Johnny. What's in your head, Johnny?
Why do you keep coming back to this genre? What is it about science fiction that you seem to dig?
I love science fiction. I love the world creation of it. I love that science fiction can be a Trojan horse. You know, you can have ideas, and you can investigate, and you can do cautionary tales, and you can do fantasy, and all other genres can kind of fit inside science fiction. You know, whether it's romance or tragedy, and you know, certainly with the Matrix trilogy, the Wachowskis certainly did that. Looking toward the future, holding up a mirror to our lives and to the choices that we make, dealing with technologies that we're dealing with or that are to come. And then sometimes you get spaceships, and you get robots, and you get aliens, and you get, you know, all sorts of, you know, cool stuff.
You mentioned sort of some moral dilemmas and maybe big moral questions. I mean, Jeffrey, you want to talk a little bit about some of the big ideas and questions that come out of this movie?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the fun things about the movie is as we said, it's a bit of a blend. It's definitely entertaining, and it's a genre suspense movie, but it's also playing around the edges of some big themes, which are the ethics of just because we can do something, should we do it? You know, these are questions that we're beginning to deal with in science, you know, in the real world all the time. Designer babies, prolonging life, and in this particular movie and in science fiction like this, we basically take a look ahead and say, well, pretty soon we're going to get to a place where we're going to have options to do things, and we haven't really thought about what the consequences of those things are. There's a series I really enjoy called Black Mirror, something they've seen. Yeah, they do great work in this with sort of what about the extension of social media to its logical conclusion, where your lives and deaths are being controlled by this stuff. What Keanu, I think what you and Steven tapped into in Chad, and what I certainly was interested in the movie is sort of saying, look, here's a scientist who is beginning to get close to the idea of preserving the human consciousness in a synthetic way. Okay, that means if these things, our bodies, are no longer, the only thing that makes us, and we can preserve ourselves in a computer or in a cloned body, we're really beginning to cheat death. And a lot of us would probably say that sounds great, but do you really want to get rid of death? There are a lot of consequences to that. On the flip side, when it's your own family, whatever you thought was ethically right or wrong suddenly goes out the window. You may not want everyone to cheat death, but when it comes to your...
I want to.
We see a show of hands. Who would like to cheat?
Who would like to cheat death?
Few. There's a few people here. That's good. And so, when you guys were getting into this story, did you do research? I mean, like this science. I've been told the science is actually not that far away from reality. I mean, what kind of research did you both do in preparing for it?
Yeah, you go first.
I don't know.
I had to catch up with you because you
No.
done the research
I
for a
didn't
year.
know. I mean, I just wanted, jump into how the brain works. And we really discovered how much science fiction we were really doing. The idea of the connectome and consciousness, and where does that live, and what does that take, and what does it mean, and what do we know now? So it was fun to kind of dive into some of the architecture of the mind, learn a bit about some neurons and some glia and some synaptic clefts.
There's a whole, by the way, I'll tell you this, there are a couple of scenes
some
where
uptake.
Keanu's character has to basically improvise,
some of
and
the charges of the synapses.
That stuff wasn't scripted. That was just Keanu, like, from whatever he'd read the night before, talking about
just kind of come in.
Which was awesome.
Yeah, the peripheral nervous system. Getting into what neurons and nerves could regenerate. But they can't.
I was thinking maybe he would perform brain surgery just on a volunteer today.
But it was fun. It was fun. I mean, that was kind of like the arc.
Oh, so we read about this thing when we were making the movie called the Human Connectome Project, which is essentially an attempt to do what William's trying to do in the movie is actually being done by I think it's the National Institute of Health and USC have a lab, and what they're gradually trying to do is map all of the connections in the brain, which seems like an impossible task. The internet says there are something like 80 billion neurons in the brain. Each one of those has 1,000 synaptic connections per second. So I can't do that math, but it's a lot. And in theory, there's no reason why they can't ultimately track them all, connect them all, and reproduce them all. And when they get to that place, you will have sort of this ability to take a snapshot of the human brain as the character's doing in the movie. And I think the thing to look at as a comparison is the Human Genome Project, which it seemed like an impossible thing when they started, and maybe the computing power is not there right now, and certainly it's not where we have it in the movie, but it's not inconceivable that at some point some version of this may be something that's possible to be able to map the brain. That's a fascinating idea.
Yeah, and I think the project even pushes with that, once you have that capability, in order to kind of get away with what William is doing, he has to start playing with their memories. So, there's this car crash, so he can't have them remember the car crash and remember that they're dead. So he starts diving into the data that he has. And so not only bringing them back, but then I can't swear here. He starts manipulating.
Yes, you can. Yes, you can.
No rules.
Anyway. So he starts manipulating, and so you're confronted by another choice. Like, not only is he doing that, but he's also manipulating and changing their memories and who they are, and who are they then, and are they really who they are when they come back? And there's that question.
And what makes, one of the other big questions in the movie is what makes you. If you just copy, let's say you could get the computing power to copy everything in your brain, every memory, every data point, every neural pathway, all of the way your brain works, and then you put it in another body, whether it's a synthetic body, a clone body, or a robot body, is that you? And
you would always talk about the parts of a ship, right? Wasn't there an allegory there?
It's called, thank you, that's called, Theseus' ship. There's an old philosophical, what if statement, which is if Theseus had a ship and you replace a few floorboards on the ship, it's a little bit different. Then you replace a few more, and then it's a little more. And obviously, but when you finish when you've changed every single board in the ship, there's not a single original board left. Is it still Theseus' ship? Is it the same ship? And that mind-bending idea is very much applicable when it comes to the idea of the human consciousness as well. There's since this is Comic-Con, you can bring up all sorts of things here that other people wouldn't be interested in, but there's a guy named Ray Kurzweil have you ever heard of Ray Kurzweil? Some of the people, he's been writing for, I don't know, maybe 20 or 30 years about this idea. I think he's an MIT scientist, but he believes that one day we will all be immortal and living inside of computers once you just figure this all out. And I think what we're playing with, and we don't pretend to have an answer, is
underwater with I'm sorry.
Is that good or bad?
Computers submerged underwater.
So you guys have thought about this more than the average person, I would say. What kind of a conclusion do you come to if your family dies and you clone them? Is it still your family?
Yeah, but I mean, but if as long as there's love, everybody's feeling okay. Okay, so then
William, this is a copy. She's not the real thing.
But we love each other. We're getting along. We got 3 kids, and they're young. They'll, trauma.
You have to go see the movie and then decide for yourself.
Okay. Okay, and so speaking of your family in the movie and William's family in the movie, let's talk a little bit about these characters, specifically Alice Eve, who plays your wife, and the two characters have a really interesting relationship because, as you mentioned, he brings her back to life, but at first she doesn't realize that. And then when she does realize it, she's not entirely happy about it. I'm just curious, what...
Yeah, there was a lot of conversations about, you know, what would how she was really gracious. Allison was really gracious with kind of sharing, you know, and working, or just sharing her thought about the character. And because I had been involved in the development of the piece, she kind of offered up like the time to talk about, well, what would she be like, and what is this, and how would she be different? You know, that very conversation of would she be the same, and would she be different, is things that she was wondering about. And definitely came to you, Jeffrey, with like having to speak to her about that. And just other than that, just a really great partner and wonderful actress. And it was fun to kind of go through the struggle of making, not the struggle, but I mean, going through the, working on some art. It was cool.
What about some of the other lead characters? Thomas Middleditch, he seems to really like light up on the screen and brings a lot of humor. I mean, how was it working with him, and what did you guys see his role as in the movie?
You know, most of you probably know Thomas Middleditch from Silicon Valley, which is right. Well, and he's, you know, it was funny because he's not, as he said to me, I don't know about this drama thing, you know, I'm like, I do a lot of comedy, I do a lot of improv, and for us, I thought that he was a really great addition to the cast, because he brought this sort of, he has this very smart kind of sensibility. I mean, he is a smart guy, but he also plays a smart guy very well, which is what he does in Silicon Valley, but he has this kind of very quick sense of humor, and certainly there were definitely a lot of lines in there that he came up with on the fly, and we took advantage of that whenever possible to just let that character have this kind of ease and banter that we just made use of for the dynamic between the two scientists. And I think that also gives the film a different flavor than it would have if it was someone who didn't have his comic timing as well.
Now, having seen the film, I mean, he is such great comic relief. Right when you think that, like, you know, it couldn't get any worse, he comes in with something really funny. And again, I know it's difficult to talk about a movie that you guys haven't seen, but hopefully you will get to see it, and you'll see what we're talking about. That Thomas is he's a really funny guy, and he knows what to say at the right time. There's another guy who plays the bad guy. It's John Ortiz, who's actually a local guy. I think he's from Brooklyn. Anybody from Brooklyn here? A few people, all right. What was it like working with John, and what did he bring to the table?
John's great. A lot of people probably know him from, he was in Silver Linings Playbook and a lot of other movies, but he also founded a theater here in New York with Philip Seymour Hoffman, which I think a lot of the actors in New York went through, and he knows everybody, and he's a real pro. And he also, by chance, happens to be Puerto Rican, so it's kind of funny, like, you know, when we were there.
From Puerto Rico.
Yeah, Puerto Rico. I could be walking down the street and the people are, hey, your autograph, and then they'd go right by Keanu to John. The only time that happens is there in Puerto Rico.
No, it happens all the time. But yeah, and he's also playing a villain. He's playing Jones, the kind of, I don't know, nefarious, kind of know everything, does he know anything, you know, kind of, I don't know, villainy.
The CEO from hell.
Yeah, the CEO of Hate. But so he's got, again, there's some comedy in what he's doing, and some, I don't know, what is it? He's kind of like, he's smiling, but you still feel threat. Like, I don't know what that is. What's the word for that? I don't know.
Insidious.
Yeah, but it's such a dynamic performance and fun. I mean, I think part of what we hoped for in this project as well is that it's a good ride, and you know, that it's entertaining, and that there's stuff to think about, and humor as well. And I think all the characters and actors and actresses and performers in the piece, and I think Jeffrey really did a good kind of version of this, was kind of, what's the tone, you know, because it gets pretty dark. Yeah, you know, carrying out your dead daughter.
Yeah, I think, you know, one of the things we all love here in this room about John Wick is the fact that it blends this tone of really hard and brutal action with these moments of kind of insane light comedy, like when you and Common go through the wall, and then all of a sudden you're in the bar. What are you going to have to drink? What are you going to have to drink? You know, that I think that was an incredibly fresh thing that you guys did in that movie, and I think that's a credit also to you as an actor to be able to do that. Not everyone can shift tones in one movie, and
Yeah.
certainly as a director, it's great when you have an actor that can do that.
Yeah.
It gets you out of the place where everyone knows exactly what's coming in a movie, and you feel like you've seen it all before. You know, you have to take a few chances to make a movie that's not like every other movie, which I think we do in this movie.
Absolutely.
And certainly it's a credit to the cast that it's able to, that it can work.
Woo!
You,
Keanu, you've definitely played some iconic characters
Yeah.
throughout the years in many different genres, most of them who are in quite desperate situations. Where does this character of William, how does he sort of fit, and how is he different from those other characters that you've played?
Yeah, I think one of the major differences, and I think it's something, Jeffrey, that you hooked into and was a real strong appeal for, was with all of this darkness, this tragedy, there was the relationship of the family, you know, and I think that was really different for me in that sense of like really, you know, fighting for your loved ones, you know, being in that sense selfless in that way of just, you know, the family dynamic, you know, with the wife and the children, and you know, and all of us together. That was really, you know, something that I hadn't really played before. You know, I'd done demons and angels, and
Yeah.
you know, but anyway, time travel, and some digital and some machines, but a family. I'd never done a family before. Let's save a family. I mean, by the way, that's not what I'm thinking at home, right? You know, it's not like, I'm not like at home looking at replicas and looking at my body work and going like, this is interesting. It's a family. I haven't done that. It's only when I'm sitting here that I'm like,
But it is pretty original. I mean, let's face it, this is an original movie. It's not based on a comic book. It's not based on another movie. It's not based on a book. It's not based on anything. It's based on an idea that you and Stephen Hamill developed from scratch. I'm just curious, like, what do you guys think about the importance of developing a new original idea? And is it a lot harder to bring a movie forward that is completely new out of whole cloth?
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm a huge fan of a lot of the movies that we all watch, the Marvel movies, the genre movies that are celebrated often here, but we would never have any of them if you didn't somewhere at some point start with an original movie. You know, there'd be no Matrix if the economics were such that we can't spend that much money on a movie unless it's based on a previous movie or a comic book or a piece of IP, something that everybody knows. I completely understand the economics for the studios. They have to make their money on movies that they know they can sell, and it's much easier to sell something if everybody already has name recognition. But I think the fans, all of you, and frankly myself as a fan, you also are hungry for new things once in a while. So I was super excited, and I give credit to you and Stephen and everyone who worked to get it to where it is, and Chad, to create something new from whole cloth. Super hard to do, and that's also why it was, you know, I mean, we're really proud of the movie. We had a great time making it in Puerto Rico, and in a weird way, it actually worked for the movie, because having them in this tropical paradise, but going through this sort of gothic darkness was a nice contrast. But, you know, if you don't get a Marvel budget when you're making a new movie.
Nope.
And let's talk a little bit about Puerto Rico. So you told us about, you got the phone call, you heard about the Zika virus, you heard about the economic collapse. At that point, it was hurricane season, but it wasn't this year, it was last year hurricane season. How did it go being down there, and what were the great parts and what were the difficult parts of shooting the whole movie there?
Well, there were definitely some challenges when you're making a movie in a market a place that's further away. You're just getting equipment there. If something breaks down, a car part or a specialized piece of movie equipment, it's a boat ride away. So it's not easy to sort of quickly move and change things. We did have, in a precursor of things to come, there was a power outage that lasted for 4 days and knocked out the entire grid while we were shooting. Remember that? And we had lights and generators, but our crew was going home to their homes, their apartments, with no air conditioning, no lights, nothing, and then coming back, and we were all continuing to shoot. And I give them incredible credit for, they were so professional and they worked so hard that it didn't stop us from shooting. We plowed ahead. We made the best of it. And I think we all made a lot of friends down there, which is one of the reasons we've been, Keanu is, and it'll be on our website, which you can announce to them, but we're trying to do what we can to raise money and reach out and help these people. They really helped us to make this movie, and there's a whole community of really proud and talented film professionals down there, and those are the people we know, but they need our help right now because they're going through some pretty tough times.
Just to follow up on that, we did set up a fund because we literally now have friends and family in Puerto Rico. I mean, these are people that we spent months with down there, and now they have lost their homes and lost so much in their everyday lives. So we've set up a fund. You can go to the New York Comic Con website. You can also go to the replicasmovie.com website, and we've made it really easy if anybody wants to help. We actually have people in Puerto Rico who are making sure that the aid gets to people who really need it. I actually just spoke this morning with somebody who's really involved in helping us, part of our team, and he was telling me about how some of the people on our team were still wading through 4 feet of water, trying to help people to assess the damage to their homes. I mean, this is like literally this morning. So again, if there's anything that anyone wants to do to help the situation in Puerto Rico, we would hugely appreciate that.
Thank you.